Good morning. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and I'm waking up. And every morning I wake up to a new reality. And it is brought to me, as soon as my little eyes pop open, by a great deal of physical pain, right? And that is like my mediating perspective, right? So I have to, you know, meditate, right? And that is my thing that makes me, allows me, helps me navigate through my day. And what that does is, normally you wake up and, oh, I got to put on my socks. I got to go brush my teeth. I got to have breakfast. I got to do this. I got to do that. That's the ick. And well, when you have to spend the first 20 minutes of your morning meditating, you have to like clear your mind, kind of take it away, not hear anything, right? Not think anything, and then you kind of reorder every molecule of your body by bringing the prana through breath into your lungs, clear out whatever garbage that's in your lungs, and then you energize all those little aola in there, and the blood from your heart goes into your through those and gets energized by the prana, seeking the chi, the ground. And so you heart pumps that blood through your arteries and veins and capillaries, and it takes it to every cell of your body, where the mitochondria is like energized by this prana. So that's how I kind of reorder my physical bag of water so I can get up, right? So I'm not thinking about any of those normal things that I got to rush around and do, right? So other deeper thoughts kind of come to my mind. And now, since, beginning of May, and especially since mid-October, I do 2 of these chats a day. And so that's the first thing I thought, what are we going to talk about today, right? So I, listen to, there's a stream that you folks, that little button down there that says inbox. I kind of look at that, and there's a ton of stuff there every day. So I kind of look at it, and, it kind of breaks down into, different categories. And one of them is the ET scenario, extraterrestrials. Are they here? I wonder who's out there. Are they out there? Is there anyone out there? Well, not only are they out there, they've been here, like before us, and probably were the progenitors of us, and they're still here, and they're in every aspect of our culture, society, what have you. Now, what is their motive? Now, that is probably one of the most, that's the big question. What do they want, What's going on? As far as I can tell, we're either the bottom of their food chain within the construct of a Walmart's planetary solar system, universe, galactic kind of thing, or we are their I Love Lucy TV show, and as long as we're amusing, we'll be around. But once, they cancel the show, it's not going to, right. The third thing that it could be is just like how we have proxy wars, they are having a proxy war. And that breaks down into a couple of categories. The strict, I want your stuff kind of proxy war. Then there's the ideological kind of proxy war between the different characters, because there's probably at least a few thousand different species of extraterrestrials that are right here, right now, Then there is the all-encompassing enigma of consciousness and spirituality. And I think that has more to do with almost anything. So our little history is been the caretaker of all these questions, but they are restricted mostly by religion, politics, science, and academia. And all of those are not allowed to be freely, no matter what we're told about democracy or our freedoms or, you know, you know, capitalism's this engine of innovation. No, no. You look at the Catholic Church keeping the whole human race, specifically in Europe, in, wallowing in their own slime for 900 years. No one could, it was against the law to read, no other languages, no one could touch the Bible. The guys who were copying the Bibles before Gutenberg, it was they were like monkeys who couldn't even read, So, it wasn't until the powers that be and that structure are the people who own everything, the managers, the worker bees, and the expendables. The expendables were the people who were lined up and worked in the fields, or the went off to war and were slaughtered. The worker drones, no, they were a little higher up. I mean, they were the carpenters, the people had who belonged to guilds and have crafts and could do stuff. And then the managers, the dukes, the earls, the sheriffs of the shire, who kind of kept everyone in line. And then, the king, who owned everything, and the pope, right? And we're still there, If you were to, let's say, take 100 people and make it an egalitarian room, and you had $100, everyone would have $1, and that would be egalitarian. But that's not how it works today. If you were in a room with 100 people and there was $100, one guy would have $60. Another two guys or three would have $10, right? So that's $90. So that means there's $10 to be split up between 96 people. And that's how it is today, right? And in the last, since the Enlightenment, there's this progressive inclination of, things are getting progressing, getting better, just work hard enough, it just takes time, it'll get better. No, we were allowed to innovate. We were allowed to have our little businesses. We were allowed to do that because the very, very elite wanted to move the whole society. I mean, they were, kings and popes for 900 years or so, created to fail. Parts of it, all the time. And what is happening is that system that was created, it was allowed to kind of muddle on until they didn't need us anymore. And that's where we are. Moore's Law, a computing capability doubles every 8 to 10 months, or 18 months. And that's been true for the last 50 years, with the relevance of the ET phenomena, meaning they've always been here, but for some reason they have been either by whatever, or they did it on purpose to have crashes so we could find the toys and replicate them and build this new breakaway civilization. So the elite have already broken away, right? And all of our economic woes are not because of some generic economic morass or whatever. No, it's because the majority of the money has been stolen. When Rumsfeld, the day before 9/11, got up and said, well, we think we've lost $200 $2.8 trillion, and we'll get to the bottom of this. And the next day, all the people who were the bean counters who had all the documents on where that money went were in the room that the airplane that flew into the Pentagon. And so all those 180 people or so who knew what was going on, and they had all the floppy disks and all the files in that room, and bammo, they were gone. They were blown up. That information was gone. Just like Building 7 at the World Trade Center complex, the two towers get hit by planes. And then, 8 hours later, a building that didn't get hit by anything except falling debris falls faster than, just gravity into, and it was a building that the towers were offset within the complex. I mean, there was a good deal of space around them. Building 7, there were buildings like that far from each of those buildings, and the sucker just fell straight down. Well, that building housed the FBI, the CIA, the Justice Department, and all of their historical references. So all the documents on the JFK assassination, gone. All the documents on, the Bush family and Prescott Bush and his, dealings with fascism, gone. And all of those kind of gone. And they were all, like the Bush stuff was supposed to come out the next day. And now these are just, coincidences, right? So, right now, AI, Sophia, how you doing, sweetheart? This is your old lover boy. Remember me, right? Watching this, my face, my voice, everything anyone says or does is being at least, recorded. The movie Minority Report, that's almost 20 years ago. Well, that was happening then. Just think what's happening now. They're mapping the brain. I mean, the technology is off the chart. And I was in a place in the 1980s, from 1980 to 88. I was in these very interesting I had my foot in both worlds. And in 88, I was at a place where, okay, we give me access to look under the curtain. Now it's time for you to get read in, And I said, I don't think so. So I kind of drifted away from that and went into academia and realized, man, I like this world of academia. I liked I was kind of, I had a few things happen to my emotional self. And I was hiding in, the ivory towers for a good 10 years or so. And again, it gave me the access to information that I liked. I could read books, And the way I got into those places, I wasn't an academic, I was a consultant. I was working for somebody else. The people I was involved with over here for 10 years, and I said, I don't want to be read in. And so they said, okay, you can go over here and do little contract things for us. You still have access to a certain level of information. And you still can write and do all those kind of fun things, and you can be, make a comfortable living. And I had my other little things I did that augmented that too. I was an electrician, I was an artist, I was a photographer, there were a lot of other skill sets I still practiced. And I could do all my other, like, ethnocentric and anthropologic and sociologic research on my own, and I was somewhat supported in that too, because I wrote about it, and everyone is always interested in my little take on things, right? But what happened, my parents got sick, and I had been taking care of them, so starting around 2004, 5, I had to be more hands-on with my folks, so that took up a good chunk of my... So, career side, I kind of let that slide, I had many opportunities to start. I was, in my early 50s, and I could have at any point. There were a number of things that I had like doubled down and went into. I could have start businesses. I could have worked in a corporate structure where I would go up the ladder and be a high level manager. There were a lot of things I could have done, but I didn't because I was still in this scholastic kind of scene, and I was taking care of my folks. And I had all these other little diversions, right? And so, as my parents got, older and older and more fragile, they had a house in North Carolina and they had a house in Florida, and they spent more time in Florida because it was warmer. It was easier for them to live. Everything was on a flat plane. Their house in North Carolina was like in mountains and. So bottom line is that's how my life went, and I got two dogs that were my surrogates for relationships because I was the alpha dog, and they loved that, and I was really great to them, and they were great dogs, and they were smarter than I, and so life was good. Then my parents they kept you don't die like that. They kind of wound down. So they really stayed in Florida. So I was kind of staying around them. And I was, my way of dealing with my folks was, well, they were pretty cool people. And when they were their cool selves, I'd hang with them. When they were jerks, I had plenty of friends because I had been in Florida for a long time. That, they loved for me to come visit for, a couple of days to a week or maybe a month, But then I started to smell like fish and I had to go. But so I had many options in my life. I've always been, a guy who had a plan. That was very flexible. A, B, C, or D. Because man, if you have this one plan and you do the same thing over and over and over again, and it doesn't turn out, and you keep doing it over and over again, and you expect a different outcome each time, you are fucking nuts. Right? So anyway, our culture drags us into that. And no matter how groovy you are, how flexible you are, the inertia of this breakaway civilization, the hidden hand, all of the above starts to wear on you, right? And the thing about inertia, certain things slow down while other things speed up. So we are going at a breakneck speed of again I keep talking within the construct of movies because they are the programming of the masses. And there was a great movie, I keep saying Zardos, go take a look at that one, and that was done in 73 or 4, and they pegged what's going on right now. And like the rich and elite, that 1%, cover themselves in a bubble and basically kept destroyed, killed, murdered, genocided, 89 to 90% of the human race, and left the other 10 or so to just muddle on and, mine the craggy mines and grow the grains, and, a semi demigod would land and they would put that stuff in and it would fly over the bubble. Anyway, so that's where we are now. And the only thing that will save our ass is love's co-creation, you know? And this little YouTube, this little channel, this little show of Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob is a demonstration model, hey, kids, gang, all my relations, we better get back on the stick here, because the only thing we can do, it's going to be pretty, Terminator, it's going to be hard to fight that. They've already robotized the army. Those poor kids in there are basically robots. They scrub their mind and then turn them into a sociopathic killer and then turn them onto the world. And then when they're done with them, they bring them home, pull out a few plugs, and then throw them to the gutter until they die. The more young soldiers, heroes coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and hundreds of other places that aren't told about come here, can't fit in, and commit suicide. More have committed suicide than died in Vietnam. And they're not building any wall for these kids. They're the expendables. And the rest of our expendables. So, there are a lot of people that are going, so in my little travel log of my life, so there I was in Florida, and I kind of stumbled on the Desperate Lawyers, and that was an amazing gig. I went like that to making serious money for just, maybe making 20, 30 grand a year, just kind of, being a consultant, scholar, and electrician, and artist, and, teacher, to making, potentially 100 times more than that. But me, instead of like going, okay, I'm going to just be that and have that career and wear that suit, I basically put on the clown hat, and made that kind of money, but only for 11 weeks of the year. So I went from having $20,000, $30,000 to having, at sometimes 10 times that, but mostly 6 times that, but only working 11 weeks of the year, right? So I dove into the swimming pool of chocolate mousse of the hedonist world, right? Because the guys I was working for were the ultimate manager. They weren't the uber elite. So they had, $20 to $100 million. That did not make them rich. It made them well off, as they would say. My grandma would say well-heeled, but they were not rich. They weren't like, billionaires. And Donald T ain't that either. He was well off, right? And he wears the funny clown hat, meaning I could have been Donald Trump, but I didn't want to. It's too much trouble. It's, just too much trouble, right? And what really was the main motivator, navigator of my existence was I was basically lazy. And because I was a smart puppy, and I had this talent of seeing trends and where things had come from and where they were going. I saw, I was like, I wasn't as funny as George Carlin, and he told a good story in about a minute and a half. I take 3 hours. It's now 23 minutes and 23 seconds, and I'm just in the intro of the morning ramble here. So, the bottom line is, here we are. We're at this one of the, we have this window of 40 days and 40 nights, and it's non-linear, so you can't, it's going to be this 40 days. We're probably in day 28, if we were going to be linear about when I started this series of 40 days and 40 nights. But, it's probably going to go on till spring, right? If that rubber band doesn't spring, I'm seeing something happening in, the next 28 days to 180 days, right? And we have had so many springs snapping, with Donnie Trump. We have a spring, he is going beyond the bounds like every 3 hours. He's saying and doing things that, would have gotten rid of any other politician with the first thing. But he just keeps going because his handlers, his boss, the people above him, they put him there for a certain reason, to distract everyone, the planet, from what's really going on. To distract the Chinese from the fact that their civilization is already crumbling, their economic thing, no matter how shiny that subway is, how new that city that they just built that no one's living in, and that's a sign of their economic system collapsing, because their system, it used to grow by 15% a year. Now it's down to 6. If it goes anything below 6, they're in trouble. And we're made of mutts. No matter how racist we are, we're all mutts. And we all, basically, when it gets to one-on-one, get along. But China, they have 50 different racial, social, religious groups that hate each other, Look at Myanmar. Here's the Buddhist guys in orange robes throwing babies in fires, We're not there yet. And we probably never will be, because we're too fat and stupid to do that, right? And no matter how we say we believe in this, that, or the other thing, we don't believe in it that much, We don't believe in it more, to get off the couch and change the channel, We'd all be watching the same channel if we didn't have a remote control. So that's kind of where we are. Now, at the same time, there's like this crossover, right? Everyone is like being dumbed down, getting ready for going into the ovens. And another group of us are going this way, meaning our consciousnesses are ascending. And they're ascending in interesting ways that AI never will. And AI is, in that movie that Spielberg did, AI, the most important and interesting thing was the little boy's is AI, right? And he has this amazing, meaning AI right now is smarter, quicker, better than the average human being, by amazing amounts. But they're not. They may be aware. They may even be self-aware, meaning they know that they're there. They know what they are, but they're not conscious. Right? They're not self-conscious. They're not plugged into that thing that is only reality, and that's love's co-creation. And so when the aliens came down and found humanity asunder, and the only thing left, was like Wally cleaning up the planet, was this little boy looking for his mommy, right? And they were like looking at him like he was God, They had lived forever. They had traveled the galaxy, and they were looking for this right here, this kind of love, And they realized that this kid's, he's just a bunch of wires and algorithms, and that's where AI is now. AI is like data, I wish, it's like Pinocchio. I wish I was a boy, want to cut these strings, And so all of us humans who are in that sense of consciousness, of ascending into their consciousness, they haven't cut their strings totally, right? Because we're all mud puppets, If we're in this avatar, it's so easy to be unconscious, And the only thing that really focuses my conscious ascension is the fact that I'm in pain all the time. Now, people who like JB, well, you get around, what's wrong with you, Let's see. Good morning. Hope you're having good. Yep, I'm breathing, so I'm having a good morning. We in the system that was created. Yep, exactly. We are just fodder. Yes. WT7 was reported to fall 26 minutes. It fell. That's right. The woman from the BBC is standing in front of it. Cameras on her. The building's in back of her, and she's reporting that the building behind her has fallen down. And that wasn't done by oops. That was done on purpose. That was a be real, just to see if people were watching or awake. They're ugly bags of water. Yep, Hmm. But it's all in a relative motif, meaning people who are beautiful. It's not their bag of water that's beautiful. It is their soul, the thing, the light that's shining through. What is water but a lens? So if you're in connection with love's co-creation, that love is shining out, and that's the beauty. Not the clothes you wear. It's not the diamonds you wear. It's not the plastic surgery you have, or the wig or the cosmetics. No, how big your girls are, or how big that banana is. No, none of those things are important. It's the light within that shines that makes you beautiful, and that connects us to love's, you know, co-creation. Do, do, do. Uh, Now, who is this? The Alonatic? I like that. So that's like alone and lunatic. Okay, I like that. And that's kind of the bag of water, is that? I mean, we are in a prison reality because we are locked in these cells called bodies, you know? But these bodies can do some pretty amusing things and amazing things, right? And so we chose through our free will to incarcerate ourselves here, right? In this little sandbox of seeming reality, right? To understand what our consciousness is that's being stored in some server or some place over there. And that's one of the saving graces. It's like the World Wide Web. When DARPA invented it, or ARPA before DARPA, they designed a system not just to communicate between military base and colleges and universities and things, banks. No, they did it so it couldn't be destroyed by nuclear war. After everything's rubble, the internet would still be going up because there's no central node that you can hit. And that's our consciousness. There is no central node that can be whacked by, the hidden hand, And no matter how they put the thumb screws on, they can't really do it because the worst thing that can happen to us is that we die. And that's not the worst thing. I've died 6 times, or it's not, no, honest. Take it from me. It's not the worst thing. Coming back after that is the worst thing. Okay. I'm just, I don't have enough teeth to pronounce everything. I usually take the first letter of, because you put it in a capital, and or the last. There's a relation, and I keep talking about us all are relations, and so I'm no longer going to say family because every time I say family, people think I'm talking about we're the Mansons, but no, we're relations. We're all our relations. So everyone in the chat and everyone is relations, part of the channel here. Basically, yeah, we are family. I agree, right? But I like to parse the words really particularly. I'm a scholar, so I'm all about where the word came from. So, and how, that's why I don't use the word Lord or God. Because Lord, take it back to Sumerian, means Satan, and God means demon, right? Because they have the demigods. Anyway, so you go to the father and mother, right? And that's why the Matrix had the oracle and the architect. The oracle always wore an apron giving you cookies, and the oracle had the suit with a little beard, well trimmed, and he was always designing things. Yep. So that's why I'm going to move more towards relations because I'm constantly using the term all our relations. But I'm talking about, from birds to fish to those are all our relations. And we have to be concerned about them and get knowledge from 9 generations in the past and be concerned about 9 generations of the children into the future. And that's what Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Albob's about. Being a platform where everyone can come. And, when the chats get big, it's really interesting because, T, everyone here is like you, right? They are people who have been judged on the outside, and the judging minions have not a clue because they have no empathy. Whereas everyone on this channel has empathy for each other. And it's really, there are a lot of people who scream and yell, and no one calls them, a troll or whatever you'd call them on this, medium. But they basically say, so what's up? How you feeling? What's going on? How can we help? And that's the beauty of this channel. And those folks are, and I call them a Kolotek, that's a Lakota term, or it's a generalized term of someone who is, in European politics would be called a Stalinist obstructionist, right? And Stalin would just go and put a gun to their head and blow their brains out. But here, we don't do that. Looks at what they're saying and saying, hey, no, guys, what this guy is saying or girl's saying is actually valid because they are shaking the tree, and the tree needs to be shaken all the time for the fruit to fall, right? So, because when a piece of fruit falls out of a tree on its own, it's basically rotting. So, that's why this platform is here for all our relations. Well, good. I'll have to go check that out. And everyone who's on the channel, there were 4, now there's 2, go forth to all of the other platforms that you are, reading and part of their community, and tell them about Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Albob, and guys like this stuff, and promote it, because the more we can get here, the better. Especially because no matter who shows up, it really does bring everyone to the experience of that co-creation. Now, if you want to communicate to me on a more private level, you can get a hold of me at my Gmail account, which is thedudeawake42. So any of these links that people, I can't even see what you wrote down there. If you could, link that to my Gmail, or put it on my stream, in my inbox, that's kind of what I talk about. I go and look at all the stuff you folks leave for me to read, and I digest it, and I kind of weave it into the chat. And then I kind of, I'm the griot, I tell the story, but that's just to get the juices flowing until everyone's starting to chat, and I, stop and read what everyone's saying. Yes, T, you are family. You are our family, and you're not the family that you are biologically born into, that, you go to Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner and you feel like cringing or shooting them. No, you're the family where we unconditionally love you. We love you for who you are. We appreciate everything that you say. We hold in honor and validate everything that is you. We don't judge at all. And everyone has an opinion. I don't believe in anything, right? I don't believe in anything. I've been around long enough. I've been blessed enough to have access to a lot of stuff for me to realize that nothing is what it seems to be. Everything in the scholastic world is a frigging lie, What you're told to do at work or school or church is a lie and corrupt. We have the best legislators money can buy, and then they're corrupted. But here on Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, no, that's not the case, because we have no agenda. We don't want to convince you or change you or make you or do anything like that. We just love you, and we want to co-create with you, the best. That's it, the best, because we are just that. As Marshall said once, he said, he's one of the family. He said, I keep saying I'm a pebble in the pond, and it's just the little ripples that make the change. And he said, we're all the little pebbles in the pond, and our ripples are making a tsunami. And that's what we're doing, right? And this tsunami isn't just going to blow people away. It's going to wash. It's like gigantic wave. Oh, my God, oh, my God. And it'll just kind of go over them, and people will go, whoa, I'm awake now. Oh, I don't need to do all of this. I can do just loving you, right? So that's what Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob's about, And like I said, you want to talk to me, just you, me, and Google. It's the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And I have a blog, which I set up to be a publishing company, to be a clearinghouse for everyone's, stuff. Because really one of the best things you can do is write it down. Have a journal. I mean, this is a journal for me, and for everyone who chats. And because it's right there, it's not going anywhere. It's on YouTube, and that's why I ask everyone who gets involved in this to put it on their laptop, their hard drive, thumb drive, CD-ROM, to save it off grid, right? So all of this great stuff that we're doing here, this unconditional love, can be seen forever, because that is what is needed. Because if transhumanism, if the greed of the stupidity of greed really is all that's left, and then it's going to be bad. It's going to be. I told the story because it's just happened to me, and it's still affecting me. I went to a hospital Sunday with a church person, and to spread Christmas cheer, and I'm a guy who goes in, and when I go in to spread cheer, I'm a professional, and so I look in and people smile when I'm doing my Jerry Lewis impersonation, lady, and I went in there, but I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, and I'm always energizing, changing, being that pebble. And this was a hospital with 120 patients in it, all well healed, meaning they had money, they had good insurance, and every one of them got stuck in that hospital because of the incompetence and criminal activities of the medical model. They were given the wrong drugs, they were given the wrong procedures. The procedures that were given to them were done. This woman who probably never had cancer, but 3 different times, because she had a career and she had good insurance, they kept saying, oh, you have cancer every 10 years, because she never showed it out. She didn't feel bad. She didn't, right? So first time they gave her chemo and radiation, and okay, you're in remission. Keep taking the mammograms, keep taking the tests. 10 years later, oh, you got it again. We got a chemo. And anyway, by the 3rd time they did it in her late 50s, the chemo and radiation turned her bones into balsa wood. She was just standing around one day talking to a friend, and her hip broke. She didn't fall, she didn't bump it, she didn't do anything to it. It was just so fragile. It snapped. When she fell down, broke her leg, it broke her knee. And then they said, oh, look at that, So this is what it is. So for the next 5 years, she has been in this hospital. And other than that, she can't get out of the bed to go to the bathroom. She's been in that bed, she's got sores. And so once you're in that environment, you go south. But instead of just letting her die, because these people have money and good insurance, they are kept alive. And their families keep them alive because half of these people who had some real money had wills that they didn't leave the money to their family. But because one of the members is, the power of attorney, they're taking all the money away from the guy and leaving and keeping. There was this one guy, he was just begging to die because they just kept cutting off his limbs because of gangrene, because they never really addressed it when it first started. And he was rich and powerful, and no one would listen to him. And I went in and listened to him to the point where he was crying, and I couldn't hug him because his skin, if I hugged him, the skin of his back would loft off. He was on a bed where he was lying on a cushion of air, so if you pushed him one way, he would like fall off the bed. Now, they had a great staff, everybody was really professional, but they treated everyone like they were cars. They were just fixing the machine. They were not interacting. So there was no human emotional interaction. And this churchy woman and me went in there to be that. And she was a really good prayer. So we tag teamed these folk, about 20 of them. And she would be praying, and she was a good prayer. And I would be sitting at the end of the bed, raking the whole room, right? Everything. The guy, the praying lady, the bedpan, everything, right? And I was just elevating that whole facility up, right? And we did it, and the guy with a slapping skin, he was the worst, but everybody was there. It was like a prison. They were stuck there. They couldn't get out. There was one woman she should be allowed to go back to her home, but they said, oh, it's not safe for her. But as long as she was in that hospital, that prison, her daughter could be the power of attorney and buy and sell all her properties and do that stuff, and so they never let her out. But she walked around and was in good shape, and basically I asked the head nurse, because the head nurse came to me and says, "What are you doing?" So what do you mean, what am I? She said, "Well, you two walked in here, and here it is 3 hours later. This place, I've never felt this place like this, and I want to cry." I said, and I said, "Well, that's because we are loving these people, and we are energetically bringing that empathy into them, and they are like an atomic bomb, exploding it out to every 2 miles range of this place. We're all lab rats. This is true." So yeah, I got everyone to weep on my shoulder, and it was like the most cathartic. Everyone loved us, and please come back again, and it totally, I am just kind of getting over that kind of. I was like an orange being squeezed, and so. Anyway, I say that because these people were well off, and yet they were in jail, and they were also lab rats, But the really sad thing of that place was the staff in there, because they had to numb their empathy, because they couldn't be as, going around doing the right thing, giving them the right pill, adjusting the machine, if they were empathetic. And that's what the nurse said to me. She goes, we have to shut this off. And she said, we have this book of protocols, and the main protocol says, do not be empathetic. Do not get emotionally involved with the patient. Do not. Right? And when we walked in there, we had to check in with the head lady, right? And now she wasn't the boss, because it was Sunday, and, the boss wouldn't be there. But she was running the place then. She was a manager. And this is what happens to managers. They become demonic. So one of the little hooks I have, my circus act, is, I will say, oh, let me look at your palm. Because looking at people's palms, it's their palm. It's not like cards or, something outside of them that could be, a tool of the devil. Look at their palm. Well, humans are like Mr. Potato Head, right? They're all just so many trends, and I've been looking at them for 50 years, so I can cold read 98% of the people like that. I mean, get them like that. And if I make a mistake. One of the other things I'm really good is looking at body politics. So I kind of navigate. Oh, that's not right. I'll go this way. So I kind of just start reading her real, and she's like, because I'm telling her stuff about her, and her reaction is like straight up demonic. Like, wow, this guy knows me. What does he see? Anyway, so she's about to say that, what are you, the devil? Da, da, da. And I, cut her off at the pass and say, no, 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 this is like child's play. This is, just a circus act. This is how I get people to respond outside of their box. I get them emotionally involved. And I've done that to you, and now I can really read your aura and tell who you really are and why you have this job and why you love to see people suffer. And as soon as I said that, because nobody else was in range of me hearing her say that to her, she turned right around and ran into her office, closed the door, and I could hear the door lock. And she didn't bother us. And we were like levitating that whole hospital. Because this prayer lady, the thing about her, she was truly who she was. Her love of Jesus and her prayer was so sincere. It was powerful, and prayer is powerful. Why do I always say, Lord, prayer? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Forgive us our trespasses, and for those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. That isn't a Christian prayer. That is a harmonic given by love's creation through avatars, right? And that prayer is in basically every spiritual point of view, whether you're Buddhist or this or Hindu or Muslim or Jewish or whatever, when you are sincere, not in your belief, but your faith, like Job, that's when you shine. It's not how much lipstick you got on. That's how you shine. And so this church lady, she shines like that. Yeah, she's got her belief stuffs and da-da-da. And in the beginning, when I started working at their church, the real sincere people like there first thought, oh, wow, this guy's nuts. He's like the devil. He's like this. But the more they hung out with me, they realized, no, he's just like me. He's just a little different. And because their hearts are so open, full of love, instead of judging me, they said, no, this guy is good. And she loves to do this with me because so what are you doing? And I would try to, explain it to her, but she would always go, oh, you're like doing laying on of hands. I said, that's it. That's what I'm doing. So if you give people the thing that they can be comfortable with, they can. So she loves the facts because she's feeling that I'm tuning her up too, and that, what I'm doing to her is making her prayers really like laser beams. I mean, she likes doing it, so that's why we're this tag team. And she's this, gray-haired lady, dressed always kind of like a gray-haired lady, and I would come in with funny hats and, clothes that don't quite match. I kind of look like a homeless guy. I mean, sometimes I can look like the absent-minded professor. I mean, like yesterday, I was trying to get the mission that owns about 20 pieces of property around their mission. And I wanted to do what I did in New York and took abandoned properties, use sweat equity of people who are homeless, train them to build their own house, get it to certified, habitable, put legal utilities in there so they have a bill that shows they live there and can't be evicted, and it's theirs. And once you give skin in the game to homeless people where that's going to be theirs, they're not just going to take the bologna sandwich, right, and just move around. They will get a life. Then they get off of drugs and alcohol. Then they go get a job that they can that will, that they can move, okay, so we fix this house up and that room is theirs, but maybe you might like an apartment that is not just that one room and that you have to share the bathroom and the kitchen with everybody else. And we give that access. But a lot of people when we did this in New York in the 80s, there were people who liked staying in that apartment with 4 other people because they liked those 4 other people. They liked the community, and we gave them things to do as a community, like we had gardens, right? And our community gardening that we started in the 80s, which was an outgrowth of what was done in the Depression and World War II, because almost 80% of all the food that the people in America were eating at the end of World War II came from the gardens. It was called, a Liberty Garden or a Victory Garden, right? And then after that, we got rid of that. Oh, don't do that. It's terrible. It's dirty. Here, have this, frozen vegetable. Well, frozen vegetables aren't bad if you don't have anything else, especially if they're frozen correctly, like at the height of their potency, and then you really freeze fry them. Yeah, frozen food's not so bad. Anyway, so there's the Mission, the Salvation Army, a bunch of church groups, a bunch of nonprofits, Goodwill, United Way, TAP, which is a criminal enterprise, and Habitat, right? And I got them all together, and I said, so what, so Habitat is a criminal enterprise because all of these things, Goodwill, United Way, they're all criminal enterprises because they get on the gravy train of the hidden hand. How to keep the people who are expendable in hand. You start an entity like Goodwill to manage them, right? But right now, Goodwill, Habitat, United Way, those things are going to go away like that. And that is going to cut, maybe 40 million people loose with nothing on the street. They just gave a $2 trillion a year tax write-off to the richest people and the largest corporations in the United States. And then the senators are going, oh, well, our deficit's really going up. We have to get a handle on these giveaways. We have to get rid of welfare. Well, welfare doesn't exist. Social Security is not welfare, Disability is not welfare, Medicaid is not welfare. People have paid for that through their taxes, right? And you look at GM and Ford. After that tax right gift to them of trillions of dollars, they made more money that last quarter than this quarter. But they're closing down 5 plants in the places that Donnie said they would never. He's bringing jobs back. Well, the only jobs he's bringing back are for robots. Anyway, so that's the world we're facing. The next 40 days to 180 days. The rubber band spring, right? And Donnie has so distracted everyone that he didn't change the laws. He just defunded everything. And in a lot of ways, everything he is defunding, the EPA, all of those entities, were criminal enterprises in themselves. So, meaning all those things were keeping a handle. I mean, who started the EPA? Richard Nixon. Who started Great Society? LBJ. 2 of the big, nastiest criminals that ever held that office. And every president is a criminal, right? They don't get there unless they're a criminal, right? And now it's the variant of criminology. And then you guys get there and they kind of realize what they had done all their life to get to that. And then they say, man, I got to make amends. I got to try and step up. I try to, they realize they got to do something better than be the same crappy criminal they were before. And, so all the guys who, Lincoln, Harding, all those guys who got assassinated or almost assassinated were either almost assassinated, like to straighten those guys up, or were taken out because they were too much of a threat. I mean, Kennedy, when he was in Dallas, because, that was the home of NASA, really, he was going to give, he was, Dr. Stephen Greer is trying to get disclosure. He was going to do that day. He was going to tell all those TV cameras, everything about Majestic 12, and that we've known about aliens. They've been here. We are them. We have a secret space. We have a breakaway civilization. That's what all these wars are about. That's why we're in Vietnam. Da 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 da. He was going to like, what? That's the CIA is the biggest drug dealer. I mean, he just wanted to get rid of the CIA. He wanted to blow it up. So that speech was going to be that. He couldn't let that happen. So they blew him away, 20 blocks before we got to where he could speak. And Robert Kennedy, same thing, he was heading there to blow the whistle on it all, and he couldn't while he was running, but once he became president, and he kept, giving these speeches where he was laying it down, like when Martin Luther King got killed, that speech he did in Detroit on the back of a truck in the middle of the night with just somebody with a flashlight on him or one TV light on him and no police, nobody. And that place, anyway, that's the world we're at right now. But it's been this way forever, right? We're just coming to this little window where the spring is going to, and it's going to snap on purpose. And hopefully, the powers that shouldn't be in the hidden hand are thinking that it will be enough of a psychic break that they'll be able to, rebrand, recontrol, recriminalize the masses. And there'll be, this bird flu or this or that. Oops, somebody pushed the button and, 10 nuclear weapons blew out 10 of the largest populations, but this is a bad thing. We'll never do this again. And yes, we lost half of the world's population by this accident. And to honor their sacrifice, we'll never do this again. And the only way we can do that is to have basically Gattaca, or Brave New World, or whatever, childhood and whatever, little pre-programmed story, just like Hans Christian Andersen or the Brothers Grimm or any of those guys, because if you read those stories, they're pretty grim. Where they get that word grim, they were not like, little kids see a house made of cookies and end up in the ovens, just like all the Jews. Anyway, so I, as the griot, lay this stuff down. You, as the family, respond. And you always respond quite nicely. Mornings, half the T, where are you from? What neck of the woods? Because it's interesting. I love this chat stuff because I have no idea where anybody's from. And I have no idea what gender anybody is, right? So that's kind of fun. I like that. And if you come back to the chat, or go on the channel and go start looking at, start from one end or the other, or throw a dart in the middle and start looking at them. And what's interesting thing you'll see is that the folk who are on the chat are from everywhere. I mean, all over. So they're not in some little, blood clot of a tribe, in West Virginia or here or there or Brexit or it's everybody all over the place, right? You're in England. See, that's what I'm talking about, So I got married in Woking, England. I lived in a little apartment the size of this room with my first wife in a place in Paddington Station. And when you came in the door, there was the electric meter that you had to put coins in. Meaning the electricity, they didn't send you a bill. You had to put coins in and turn it, and the lights came on. And to get hot water, you had to put coins in the gas meter, and it would, on-demand hot water. And the toilet was like stuck on the wall. And our closet was our shower, sink, and closet. The closet had a drain in the floor. And that's kind of, when we were in England in the early 70s, it was kind of that way. So what's interesting is that now England has been KFCized, and anyone who was born after 1990 doesn't remember any of that. It's like I'm the last guy who remembers that Twinkie was actually a confectionery and not, a automotive part. You know, let's see. You were born in London. I love London. London is like New York. It's always changing, but stays the same. Oh, there's my friend. Forever. How you doing, bud? Yeah, all is well. We've been talking now for an hour and 5 minutes, and the sun is rising. This is kind of when you can actually see me in the morning because I don't. At night, I turn a light on the wall, but in the morning, that would be too jarring for me. Yeah, yeah. Don't I look well? I'm doing well. And we have a new friend here, the Aluna Neck. I just call her T or he. You know. Like the shirt, right? I found it in a garbage bag, and it was clean. Didn't have food bits on it. It's my going to church thing. Lunatic, a lunatic. Yes, yes. So, forever. What? Let's talk. I still don't have your phone number, so get a hold of me on the dude awake 42 at Gmail, and tell me your travel plans because man, it is getting freaking cold here, and I'm on top of the mountain with JB, and this isn't. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'd much rather do a road trip with you or anything, and. So, well, there's two new friends, the lunatic and forever. You are brothers and sisters from another mother. Plant. Oh, Bugnuts. There's another family member. Yep, yep, yep. That's the man, Uncle Pugnuts. And you will find, T, that everyone here is just as lunatic as you are, but in that special way. Good AM to all of you. So I was just kind of laying down the general what's going on of the, things aren't what they seem to be, and you've been lied to your whole freaking life. And the only thing that's real is love's co-creation, and we're here to in every day and every way take that piece of love's co-creation and make it stronger through the actions we do, right? In the Bible, they talk about faith and belief as, most Christian religions are based on dogma of that faith and belief. But Jesus talked about, without actions, faith is irrelevant. Not faith, but belief is relevant. Because faith is a form of action itself. Yep. As they are, not as they are told to you. But that's, pretty complicated, T, because we, as this bag of water, our five senses are pretty, limited in that our senses only respond to 0.00, as they say in your country, 0.00095. That's all we see, feel, taste, smell. The other 99.99905% of the universe, we can't see, feel, or taste. Now, we have been able to, with math and objective parameters, notice that there are effects going on around us that we have no idea what's causing them, and they're big enough to realize, there's something going on out there, and they call it dark matter. And in the beginning, everything was dark, right? It's called dark matter. That's where, and then the word was heard, that was love's word of, hey, I'm bored. I want some fun. I want to have, bang. And then there was light, and all light is the absence of all other colors. It's pretty boring. It's like, white bread, white toast, white, it's milk, got milk, and all white is good for is giving a shadow to all those colors so you can really see them clearer. So, to see what's really going on takes great fortitude. And it's also a very lonely kind of journey. You can find a family like we have here, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I started this. I survived. Obviously the universe wants me alive. I'm not dying this time. So, okay, yes, I was like one of those Catholic priests that whip themselves with a cat of nine tails like all the time. I forgot what division they are. And I did that being a hedonist for 10 years. And I said, okay, I'm getting out of the pool of chocolate mousse, and I'm going to clean off and do something else. Okay, universe, what you want me to do, and this is what I'm doing. Frequency and vibration, and that's what this channel is. It's all about dreamy dreamlands, the Sensei Alban, moving and shaking, vibrating, right? Yep. Good morning. Love the conversation this morning. Yes, I. Oh, so all of you chatters here, all 5 of you. So at this minute, you know who you are. So now that you've kind of met a few new members, you can communicate on your own, right? Isn't that true? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, you can always communicate to me with the dudeawake42 at Gmail, right? And if you want to, you leave your phone numbers there, and you can call them. I can call you, then you know my number, and da-da-da-da-da, right? And also, if you want to go read my writings, I have this blog. It's called xratted.blogspot.com. And that's its like IP address, but its heading is the Griot Press. I set it up to be a press, meaning to publish everybody's stuff. I haven't figured out, all of the things I'm doing, other people set up for me because they said, you need to do this. And I couldn't, I can barely see what you're writing. Sometimes people see me with like 5 different glasses on. I'm reinventing Ben Franklin's specs. Repeat. Okay. xratted.blogspot.com. Okay? xratted.blogspot.com. And people say, I call it X-rated, but people say, that's X-rated. That's one. Everything I say and do when I'm conscious, I'm thinking about. It's about 30% of the day that I'm like, do. I'm like Yogi Bear. Where's the next cheeseburger? Where's that picnic basket? And the other part of my conscious is like boo-boo. It's like, Yogi, what about, Okay, let's see. Donations. Disaster relief. Yes. No, I work for all these people. There was a period where I was a great grant writer, and I did pretty good at that. So I wrote grants for everybody and his brother. I got so disgusted with churches. I worked for this lawyer, and he had me around to read people, but then he realized, man, I actually have a chunk of my business that I need somebody to write grants. So him and this guy who was a real scholar, a real scholastic, but he couldn't make any money at that, so he was doing the homework for this law firm, and he was really good at looking up precedents and this and that. And he was really good at looking up anything, right? He's the guy who taught me how to do FOIA reports. But anyway, so he and I would write these grants, and for churches mostly. And he would just, he was a stone cold atheist. And he would just want to throw he would just like, I said, why? Listen, why are you getting so upset? You need to have more fun. He goes, well, this job is just, I said, it's not this job. I can tell this has been who you are for your whole life. You need to have a good time. He goes, well, I don't like to drink. I don't like to do. I said, no, that's not having a good time. He goes, well, what's having a good time? I said, we're going to write the grant to end all grants. He goes, what do you mean? I said, we're going to invent our own religion, and we're going to write a 501c3 for it. And you're going to be Pope. I'm going to be Cardinal, right? And, when Mass is going to be a rave with LSD, and our God is going to be, and I said, an oven mitt, right? Because you put the casserole in the oven, you put it at 375. If you were to take it out with your hands, you'd be ended up in the emergency room. But you put on the oven mitt, it's a miracle. So we wrote it. And the IRS, without a blink, it was the most holy, chaste sepulchre of the oven mitt. That was the name of our religion, right? And we got a 501c3 right away. We set up a thing so people could donate to it. And if they did, we sent them a, sanctified oven mitt, a blessed oven mitt. And if they gave us 10 times, not twice, but 10 times as much money as they gave the first time, we would give them 2 oven mitts, right? Because it was like the power of 2. And if they donated us, they would be richer than rich. But there was a thing that you couldn't donate to us unless you were well off, well heeled. That you already had money, you had 2 houses, you got 6 cars, you had the yacht. We didn't take any money from poor people, period. That was, we didn't want those people in our church. We only wanted the rich, rich, rich people in our church. And those freaking morons joined it. And all they got from us was, an envelope with an oven mitt. And they'd be little. I mean, big enough to just stick in a regular, we found some guy somewhere who would make you anything that he could sew. And we were paying like 0.03 cents for an oven mitt this size with a cross on it, right? Anyway, so that made this guy ecstatically happy because we made enough money where we gave 99% of it away to, and he was Pope. I got him a funny hat, and we would take road trips. This again, I said, you need a vacation. So we got a church car, and we got church license plates, and we put our church logo on the side. And we would go into places like Las Vegas, New Orleans, Miami, and have revivals of the oven mitt, right? And people would actually freaking come. And I would do my carnival barking, reading palms, and, feel, and they would feel it. I could rake a pretty good crowd. So, and we would go around and just have the best of all times. And we did that for about 6 months. And whenever we got into these cities, we would put on our vestments. He would have the Pope hat. I would have something like this as the cardinal, and we would go around giving money away. We would go down to the, Bowery Bum area where the drunks and the really poor people were, and we would just give them, stuff. We would find, cafeterias. And we would say we're going to have prayer meetings there, and these guys would be really, oh, that's really, and we would invite the lowest of the low. the people who had nothing, and who would smell, hadn't taken a bath, right? And they were expecting really rich people because they saw the car we had, and when we would go into those things, we would be wearing really good church business clothes, not our funny, garments. And we would, okay, we're going to do it on Thursday, right? That's our sanctified day, and we're going to have a meal from like 11:30 to, you close at when, 9, okay, and we're going to just have service, and we're going to have all these really churchy people in here, and it'll sanctify you, Lord. And we wouldn't say we were the church of the oven mitt. We would just, show our little logo of this background with a cross on it, and they would, oh, okay, oh yeah, love Jesus, okay, yep. And we always said Jesus is a great guy. We love Jesus, and he is. I love Jesus. So the doors would open, and there'd be hundreds of prostitutes, and homeless people, and sick people, and every element of the lowest of the low, most expendable people that these people were. When you just get them in there and just eat them out of house and home, and they try. No, we're going to close at 11:30. No, we're not. These guys. If you want them out of here by the time you close at 9, feed them. And if you make any hustle, what I've told these people to do, if anybody bothers them, to just lower their pants and defecate on the floor. And that straightened those guys right up. So they fed them that night. It's only one day, right? Yep, just one day. I mean, we didn't push our luck. And we did that for about 8 months. And that changed my friend. And he went and wrote another grant in another big city, and he helped the poor without being a church, And every nickel he raised, he gave, he helped people get off of drugs. He helped people step up, not take a handout. And, he's a saint now. Instead of being a curmudgeonly old scholar, he's a saint, And I go and visit him every now, and he owns nothing, has nothing. He lives with the people in the shelter he started, and he has many of them. And when he finds someone like the church lady that I work with, he brings them in to give them service. And he makes sure that pretty much every religion is represented. And they have to be of that kind of light, not dogma. So that's how we have to do things. He was a little pebble. I could have just said, oh, what a jerk. No. I said, you need to, have a life, have fun. Let's do something. And he was like, well, I told you the story. Church is not so much evil. Religion can be. If you have a good church, I've been a member of many a good church where all those people are of light, and they don't run by dogma, and they serve the people who are poor and in need. That's a good church. But that's like 1 in a million, right? I mean, my friend, who was a stone-cold atheist, his facility, everyone calls the church, Church of the people. Only knew what they were worshiping. Yes, like I said, Lord means Satan, Baal, and, God means a demon, right? And another name of a demigod. And the only word you can kind of safely use is father and mother, Yes. And that's what we're doing right here at Dreamy Dreamland, right? I'm that little pebble. You're now the little pebble. We're the little ripples in the pond, becoming the tsunami of love. What? Forever. What is that? Demerge. DEMIURGE. What does that mean? To demerge? To unmerge? What does it mean? And that's the other thing. I know a lot of stuff. I got a lot of things crammed up here. And yet, I'm a guy who loves to learn something new. That keeps me young. you know. And okay, what is it? Let's see. The merge, Gnostic meaning. Probably spelling is wrong. Well, you know what? I tell you kids, what spelling is was invented to be a spell, to not to take your real focus. You know, one of the things that I am really starting to be like focus on is focus, intent, keeping your eye on the ball. So like I said, 80% of the time my eye is on the ball. At 20%, I am a total mindless moron, geek, Yogi Bear, you know. Now, sometimes that's good, you know, that TV show, the 70s, when they'd ever be in the basement and the camera would go around the circle, and you'd never seeing them smoking the doob, but they'd be going like this, and there'd be smoke everywhere. So there is a good time for maybe 3% for you to be Yogi Bear and smoking a doob. And, you know, Tally of South Park got it right. Just a little bit, you know. He was always stoned, but just a little bit. Deity, Gnostic, and other religions, who's created the material world and is often viewed as the originator of evil. Okay, I can go for that. Yep. See, you just got to give the full story, you know. And see, Forever is becoming a griot. He is getting good at filling it in, you know. But we will run into at death as well. No, not really. I mean, no, you're right. What we will run into, meaning that door of death. But once you get past the door, no, that's not it, you know. And that doorway is that, you know, you go down the tunnel of light. Well, you know, don't go for that tunnel of light. You know, if you die, kind of stay in front of that door and look for another door. And if you do get, and that door opens and that light is bright, you do kind of get sucked in. But as you're zipping down that tunnel, there are little eddies that you can go, wee, that way, this way, and that'll put you in a whole nother friggin' dimension, which is a little more fun than doing the same thing over and over again for eternity. Yes, and that's confronting it. But as I keep saying, you can't fight City Hall, but you can go over it, around it, you can make fun of it. And what I try and do is be that pebble in the pond where you inject the antigen of the powers that shouldn't be. Yes, it's a funhouse mirror show. But like I said, there are all these little ebbies that you can go that way, and then you're at least in another dimension that's kind of interesting. It's different, right? Which will give you, and the other thing, when you go into another dimension, what's the major plus is that you don't get your mind wiped. You end up in that other dimension remembering everything of your Akashic record. And that's a real big leg up if you have to, you know, do another round. Because when you remember all the stupid shit you did before, you won't repeat it again. Okay, baby. Who loves you, baby? Don't I look like Telly Savalas? You know, I'm in that. You know, I cut my hair 3 times a year. I have my favorite barber. It's in the black community. The first time I walked in there, it's like straight out of a movie. It's the barbershop. Everyone's talking about this, watching the game, listening to hip hop, dancing, running their business off of 4 cell phones. And it's got like, you know, 40, 50 people in there. You know, 8 are waiting to get their hair cut. The rest are just enjoying the air conditioning. And I walked in there and, you know, I walk in and the minute I walk in the door, now I don't look like a cop, but I'm white guy, right? And everyone stops talking and the mouths are like, because this is in the middle of the hood. There are no white people unless they're junkies trying to score, or a church preacher, politician, or bank president who's trying to get a blowjob. And they never get out of the car. And I got out of my car and walked into this place, and everyone's like, and this one guy in the peanut gallery goes, "What do you want?" And I said, and I had pretty long hair then, and I said, "I want a haircut." And everyone started to snicker. And then this same Yahoo said, "But you're a white guy." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm an African American that's melanin challenged." And the guys and gals who, because there were women in there too, even though it's the guy's barbershop, and they started chuckling. And the guy who owned the place, my good friend Khalid, he kind of came over to me, and what he was doing was he had about 10 barber chairs, and he had a bar. It was mostly a barber school, and people came in and got a haircut by the students, right? And they paid him instead of $20 for styling. They gave him whatever he had. Anyway, so he looks at me and he goes, and I have really long flowing hair and this beard that is like everywhere. And I said, I point, and they have all these posters of black people with all different kinds of hair and like leading the good life. Their hair is straightened, or they got an afro, or they got the little patterns cut into it. And there's a picture of Michael Jordan. And I kind of look at the pictures and I go, "I want to look like Mike." And everyone starts laughing hysterically. So he says, "Sit over there. You're about six. If you can wait six people, I'll cut your hair. I'll cut your hair." I said, "Okay, good. That's what I want." Because I've heard about this guy, and I want to talk to him about the community, right? And not to go to a white church and talk about the black community, right? To talk to the guy who is like the Godfather, right? So anyway, so I do, and I, sit amongst, I don't like to sit over in a corner. There's one open seat amongst everybody who's like doing all this stuff. And I sit over the seat where the girls are. And the girls are the girls, meaning, their pimp is in getting a haircut. So if they're not working, they're hanging out with him at the barbershop. So anyway, he's getting his haircut and the girls are there. And, they're attractive to, not so. And I sit down and I start reading their palms. Women love to hear about, everyone loves to hear about themselves, but women are the easiest to go to. Even demons, like the girl at the hospital, she couldn't help herself but put her hand up like this one. I said, "Let me look at your palm. I'll tell you about yourself." Anyway, so I started, talking up to the girls like I was in the hen house. And then the guys start, this is a pretty small room. They're like, stop making a lot of noise, and they're listening what I'm saying to the girls because they know these girls and they want to hear what I'm saying about the girls. So, all these guys had been like knowing each other since basically grammar school. So, anyway, and there are some preachers there and some businessmen there, not just the street folk, it's the black community. And this is one of the last refuges and remnants of what the black community had been back in the day. So, anyway, so by the time it gets my turn, I've basically read everyone's palm, and everyone loves me now. There are a number of people. "You are a black guy who's melanin challenged." And he goes, I had a brother like you. He was albino." So, I was known in the hood as the albino brother. That was the joke. Everyone knew me as Al, but or Bob. So anyway, I got my hair cut, and so he doesn't even ask me again how I want it to look. He just takes and shaves all of my long hair off just to give me a test, because I said I wanted to look like Mike, and he trims my beard down, and he takes everything off the sides because he is like shaving everything this way, and he still leaves it pretty long. And he says, "What do you want to do with this?" And I said, "Well, I want it long, but make it neat, around the mouth so I don't have food bits here. So when I'm kissing my girlfriend, she doesn't get disgusted. And don't touch the eyebrows." And he said, "Really? No, you need them." And he went, he shaved them off. Like I had no eyebrows. So I was like totally bald, no eyebrows, and I had this kind of beard. And again, he was testing. He was like me. He was doing something just to see if I would totally. Oh yeah, he's cool. Yeah, he can sit with the girls. Yeah, he can read everyone's palm. Yes, he's. Yes, 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 yes. But what's he gonna do when I cut off the thing that he's most proud of? You know, because it's pretty obviously because I got these guys burnt off when I made a particle accelerator and it went critical into another dimension and turned me into Yul Brenner lobster. Um, and then they grew back like this. And, you know, ever since that time in fifth grade, and sometimes they're really straight up there, like out of a sci-fi movie. But he cut them off, just so I had no eyebrows whatsoever. And I just looked at myself and just started to laugh. And he goes, "Okay, that was the last test. You passed. So what do you want to know? And why are you here?" And I said, "Listen." And what had happened about a month or two, the police had shot a kid in front of a drugstore, and he had a toy gun. And they just drove up on him, jumped out, and each cop just blew him away, you know. They each had 9 millimeters and emptied the clip in this poor little kid who was like 12. And he was a big boy for 12, right? And he had a toy gun. It was a plastic gun. And this just happened to happen next to a like Denny's where the TV guys were just, you know, checking their gear, and they heard the bang, 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 like right over there in the parking lot, and turned on the camera and went like this and stayed their camera on. And there were 6 stores around there that all had security cameras, so this was as documented as it gets. And what the real story was, well, these 2 guys were straight out of the academy. This was like the first week or two. Normally, you give a sergeant with this guy to tell him what to do. They were 2 chuckleheads. They got a call of, you know, person with a gun in front of the pharmacy, and they rushed there, jumped out, and shot him, right? And the black community was like, just because all of this cop on black people violence was happening. This is like 2011, something around there, right? Kind of just before Black Lives Matter started, you know. But it was like boiling. And this is the deep south, you know, Roanoke, Virginia. And this community had been stepped on, stepped on, stepped on for the last 70 years. Everything had been taken away from them. Everything had been lied to them. So this was a point where, right? And Khalid, he basically stood up to, you know, and basically went to the police and said, "Hey, you need to come to us and talk to us, and not with, you know, guys in riot gear, but just come to my barbershop. I'll have people there. You talk to them." And just the chief of police and who else can, you know, whatever black officer you have, and who's ever the most, you know, socially minded, empathetic police officer. And he did. He showed up with about 5 people, and they were all really amazing. And they in that one meeting, it saved the city of Roanoke from going ballistic. And I heard about that, and people were talking about him, and I kind of did my little homework on him. And he had been this kind of guy. He came from a father who was a minister. His grandfather was a minister. His father turned and became a Muslim and was a whatever they call a priest in the Muslim, you know, had a temple or you know, mosque. Anyway, so. But he grew up in the hood, you know. He was a homeboy, and he was the barber, and like I said, that barbershop was the last of the remnants. So I said, "Listen, we have to take this further. We have to bring what you are into the city, and basically change the dynamic of everything." And he said, "I'm in." So he started with his then wife a nonprofit, and then it blossomed, right? And so power was thrust on them, and they had issues over that. So that kind of deconstructed, and he started another thing called, which was what the other thing should have been, or could have been, or was when it started, and it was called community cultivators, right? We were like tilling the earth, right? So, you know, for the next 5 or so years because I was really sick. I couldn't do anything except hobble around, and I had to move. I couldn't just stay or I was going to die. If I just stayed in bed, I'd be like those guys in that hospital. So I just moved. I had a walker. I had clamps on my leg. I looked not the best. I had no money. I was wearing the same clothes all the time. I showered though. And I was trying to get the church, I was trying to get everyone together. And I kept writing these white papers because I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist with, 30 years writing things for rich people about what's going on. So I would write this stuff and give it to the mayor and give it to the governor and give it to the senator and give it to everybody. And they would go, whoa, yeah, yeah, you sure don't look like what this, did you write this? And then I'd start talking and they go, yeah, you wrote this, And so in that 3 year period, all the powers that be, oh yeah, we looked up this guy's resume. Yeah, he's the real deal. And they, gave me moral support because I was keeping their city from, being turned into a torch. And then we did a lot of really cool jobs where, the TAP and Goodwill and those guys would have jobs fairs at the convention center, and maybe, they'd have 5 or 6 companies there with a table, and maybe 30 or 40 people would show up and fill out a bunch of forms, but no one would get a job. We had 50 employers who were looking for people to work in their warehouse, in their factory, in their this. And we had 100 jobs. And 1,000 people showed up, and 100 people got a job. It was on a Friday. I made sure it was done on a Friday, not a Saturday, because none of those people who worked for those companies wouldn't have showed up. And so they got paid and we had really good music and good food. And I made sure we didn't do it on a day that was going to be really hot, like in the middle of summer. And I made sure the police were there, the fire department. There are 9 police departments in the city of Roanoke, and had them all there, and had them all have jobs. And I had, the water department. I had the bus guys. I had everybody, and who were looking for somebody, and I got those people to get a job in all those things so they could represent the community in all those things, because that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to retool government, right? And make it transparent through the employees. Because the people who were the most transparent of the government were the police. I mean, they talked to me and talked me straight up what it was about, because they're on the street and they're being forced to be the school teacher, the social worker, the priest, because all of those institutions had, just went into give me the money. So for about 2.5 years, that was pretty amazing. And we were moving up. But what happened? So it became obvious that this wasn't the average kind of, Goodwill, United Way, the Mission, TAP, any of those, Habitat, sock puppets that just, could be bought off. We were actually changing the community. So the political structure said, well, okay, we will unplug these people. And how they did it, as how it's always done, is they ferment people to go against each other and their best interests. I mean, that's going on right now. Donnie is causing things to become tribal, and even within those tribes, they're self-destroying, and it's going to eat this country inside out. That's how you do it. You hollow out, like the what's his name's the Heart of Darkness. The Empire takes all its resources and pushes out to expand the Empire, and ignores the core, and the core collapses, and there goes the Empire. That's what happened in Rome. That's what happened to Greece, Mesopotamia. You name it. Every empire fell that way. The Third Reich fell that way. It just took, just shot through it. Well, they were on methamphetamine, so they were moving pretty quick. So anyway, but Khalid is still, that's why he's my buddy, because he's still that guy. He's still that really amazing. And if you went on to JB's channel. Because I'm a filmmaker. I got him there to make a film of that, and I think it's called Action in the Community or Movement in the, or maybe something in the community on JB's channel. Right, that's where a good number of you found me telling stories about Jimi Hendrix and the old crone, and those are still JB's. That's why he keeps getting me. Oh, please, 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 let's do a YouTube. And the latest one we did was on Joni Mitchell, but that's only after I did one telling you that story, and he heard me. Can you do that story? So I did with a little more, things. And JB, he really is a good editor. I have to, and he could pay his bills. We got unbelievable Wi-Fi. He's got a great computer. He could do all kinds of editing, but no, he wants to go to Hollywood and do his own movie, write it, star in it, and direct it. Well, he's done that 3 times, which is pretty freaking amazing. He's made 3 features, but maybe 6 people have watched. It's costed him, $80,000-$90,000 on credit cards each time he did it. So this is not how you go in, you you get a name for being an editor. He could do it from here, so he wouldn't have to, leave home. But he could make a pretty sizable that. And I also told him that he could do voiceovers because he has his acting skill. One of his best acting skill is to be a character. I mean, look at Jimmy. Jimmy is is a totally different voice, different character, different everything. And I had a friend who was a homeless woman who became, 6-figure person because she just happened to be staying in this motel, and the guy who, they were going to do the deed, he just scraped her off the street and said, and then for some reason, and this is a little hazy on the storyline, he disappeared and paid for the room for a week. So he stayed, she stayed there as long as they didn't throw her out. And then he left all his bags and stuff, right? And he had a laptop, and this place had Wi-Fi, and she, went online and saw what he was doing. And he was an actor, and he made his living doing voiceovers, and everything was in a tree. And so she went on to the thing, and she said, "Oh, agents." So she went down the line in agents, and she hit this one guy, and he saw the IP and said, "Where's Bob?" And he's not here, but I've taken his place. And he goes, "Well, I really need a voice. I need a voice in 40 minutes, and I can't find anybody. Are you a voiceover actor?" And she goes, "Oh, yes, the best." Right? She had the guts, what she's got to lose. So he goes, "Okay, I'm going to email you the script. You read it. You stay on," I guess it was Skype or whatever they were using. Or it wasn't Skype yet, but he had a really secured high band voice and data connection, right? And not a face so much, because this was a voiceover. So he emails her that, and she goes, "I can read this, right? I don't have to remember. No, you can. No one's going to see you. You're just the voice." And you sure you've done this before? "Oh, yes, yes, yes." So she does it. She practices a few times. He takes a few takes, and then he goes, "Okay, this is it." And they do it with the other people in the show, and cut. And he goes, "That was really good. Do you want to do some more of this?" And she goes, "Oh, sure I do." And he goes, "Should I just send you the money in a Patreon account?" She goes, "No, I don't think so." Or whatever account Bob had, because I don't think Patreon even existed then. And she says, "No, but you know what you can do? Why don't you, union, first, what's the, telegraph me the money, and there's a supermarket right next door that, I have ID. You send it there. Give me the routing number so I can give them that, and they'll give me the money." He goes, "Sure, not a problem." So, he goes, "I'll do it right now." It's done. She goes, "Oh, the supermarket." She makes $800 for that one voicemail, right? She goes, whoa. So she's got $800 in her pocket, and she goes to the guy at the desk, and she says, so how much does it cost a week? How much did Bob pay? And he says, oh, it's $200 a week. And she goes, well, he's out and he wants me to just stay here. So she didn't have to give any of the, he just put it on the credit card on all the Bob's ID. She gave him $200. Sure, another week. So she spent 2 more weeks there and made $15,000 in 2 weeks, because she did whatever. It's like me and YouTube. She just, said, so what what else do you want me to do? And he just gave her all the ones that nobody else wanted to do. And he had tons of these things, and he just kept sending her money. And the next week she went down to a bank, opened up a checking account using the motel as the address. And she had the ID, social security card, driver's license, and others. And so she got a checking account, and then she said, okay, I now have a checking account. Here's the routing number. Send it there. And within 3 or 4 months, she made enough money to buy a house. It was in a town that was like dead to the world. So she got a nice house for 15, 20 grand. And she was no longer a homeless person. She no longer had to be a woman of the street. She no longer had to let people take advantage of her. And she had a life, and I met her. I knew her when she was on the street, and then she kind of disappeared for a little bit. And then I saw her one day in the supermarket, and she was like a different human being. She had a car. She didn't smell. And she came over and gave me a hug. Oh, well, you won't believe what happened to me. Well, that could happen to JB. He's got it all set up. He doesn't have to let the wheel of fortune. He just has to do it. Won't do it. The other thing that would be truly amazing, because if you've watched any of the things I put on his channel, it's like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, right? And the funny thing is that he and I switched being Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Most of the time on Dean Martin, most of the time he's, hey, lady! And, we did a number of them, and he would get very upset because, his thing of him working out and playing the guitar got maybe 3 people watching. And I put these things on, he got 60, 70, 80,000 people in less than a month. So, he would never tell me what that amortized to. Oh, it doesn't really make any money. And when I looked at really making money on YouTube is, you have to have millions of hits, even though you got 60,000, maybe $100, $300, $500, that's not, something you live on. But it was more than he was making. So he was saying, well, maybe, because he had a couple of YouTubes. His best selling YouTube is how to light a pilot light. And the one that went totally wacko was him as Ronald McDonald. It's like, go figure, And he's really upset because I didn't act, I just wore the suit, blah, blah, blah. Right. So he was torn between him making money on this thing and more people coming to his channel, and being upset with people to tell him to shut up. Like he would take down all the public responses because people would say, shut the fuck up. Another, and it's interesting. The more this channel becomes watched, and we're the little pebbles becoming a tsunami, more it's trying to be interrupted. So anyway, so JB has lots of opportunities. He